Hi, Larry Stewart here with ForConstructionPros.com. Welcome to Edwards Demonstration Area with the Caterpillar organization. Meet Brian Cain, not demolition, but demonstrator and instructors here at Edwards. Brian, I hear you spent a good bit of time carving that out of the field here at Edwards.
Yeah, I spent a pretty good amount of time sitting in the machine, kind of looking over what we had to do for sure. We started with the preparation of the field. Again, that kind of went as pushing material out and putting it back in lifts. And during that time also, I was in the excavator kind of thinking through where we should start at, where would be a good place to end at, and how we can make everything kind of production.
Yeah.
From the start to the end, for sure.
So this is a kind of a reproduction of the old Pac-Man game. Did you ever play Pac-Man in your time?
I did play some Pac-Man in my time, yeah. I never really got to probably the final levels to win, but it was always, always fun.
Those guys were rock stars. I could never touch that either. So when somebody came to you and said, we're going to carve a Pac-Man game in this field, what was the first thing you thought of? What were the first challenges that you thought? How are we going to do that?
Well, the first thing I thought of was weather.
Yeah.
I'm like, everything we always do, whether most of the time at Edwards here, we have an arena where we're able to do all that stuff inside. But here, they're like, we're going to do it outside. Yeah. And then you're like, okay, when? Like, is it going to rain? Is it going to be hot? Is it going to be sunny? Is it going to be damp? You never know with that.
Yeah.
That was the first challenge I thought of, was like, what happens if it rains for a day? Mm-hmm. What are we going to do? So that was the first challenge I thought of. Didn't really realize how many kind of corners and tees and pillars and everything else was in a Pac-Man game.
Yeah.
Until you really sit there and look at it, you don't really know. So.
Yeah, you're trying to get them up, make sure they're all standing up at the end. You really start thinking about them, I guess.
Standing up and then all being in line. The theory would be we'd be able to dig this with the cat grade and have 3D, and then be able to overlay the game with it and kind of look at it and see, does it really match? Is it what they wanted? So we were able to do that for sure.
So they were able to upload the Pac-Man design into a model for the GPS system?
I don't think it was as simple as just kind of like taking a picture and loading it into the machine.
Yeah.
We have a designer that does that stuff for us, for sure. Mm-hmm. And they're able to take those measurements, and even you have to make it kind of bigger a little bit. So we have the machines are going to be running in our Pac-Man game, and they're going to be running in all over the place. So we have to make those areas big enough to run in.
Yeah.
So you have to like kind of make it a little bit larger. But then also it comes to the dirt, so the material that we're going to use. So with that design, we can overlay it on a flat field, and then it's all the same depth. So it's all the same precise depth. And then with this field, we have it kind of a little drainage issue. So it drains down one way at a certain percent, right? Yeah. So with all that being said, it's all matched up, and it all drains down to one corner where we can get rid of the water.
Yeah, a drainage issue that you created yourself. You wanted to make sure you can move the water off of there if you got rain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. How did they decide which machine to dig this with?
Deciding on which machine, it was kind of up to us on what machine we wanted to use. We went with the 336. It's kind of a large machine to be digging a little bit precise stuff with, but with the material we had to dig, we're about 4 feet in depth in most spots, but it wasn't like we could go out and just do production digging. We had to actually, make a corner and figure out where we're going to go from there. So it was a very kind of, what we have is these machines, and we kind of picked and choose between those. We're able to use support machines, a little bit smaller excavators with a tilt bucket on it, a smooth bucket, that really helped out in the process too.
Yeah. Some prep work went into this before you started digging. Prep this field for what you were going to try and do. How did you do that?
Yeah, so preparation of the field, most of the time, if somebody goes out and they dig something, a lot of times it'll be, I'm going to say, in virgin ground, untouched ground. But with this material here we have at Edwards, we do a lot of training, a lot of different things here. So we need to push the material out. So when I say push out, we take a bunch of dozers, we slot doze the material out, and then we compact it back in with a compactor. Put it in layers down in there, and then run it over, make sure it's all the same. So that way when we dig, the bottom's all the same, the sides are all the same, and everything looks the same. And it also makes all the islands and everything hold up very well.
Yeah, you didn't have to mix anything with it then.
No.
It's just straight,
Yep.
Good old Illinois clay.
You got it.
There you go.
Good old Illinois potato dirt.
Yeah. What was your decision? You said you had kind of had to decide how to do this, how to approach the things that need to be dug. Did you start in the middle? What was the best approach? Did you learn anything about the best approach in the process?
There's always kind of a learning curve of, am I going to forget one of the islands? Or am I going to forget one of the lanes? means am I going to dig through one of the islands? With having all that, with the GPS on there, you could see it where I was. So I didn't have really that concern, but starting was a big thing. So where should we start at?
Yeah.
A lot of times for me, I thought maybe start in the center and just dig yourself out of it, right? But then with the weather coming, things like that, we wanted to start where the drainage was so we could, if it did start raining and something happened, it would all just drain away. And we started in one corner and worked our way out, kind of went around. There was a few times where you're like, well, at the end, maybe I should have started here. Maybe I should have went there. With having all the support machines and all the guys on board with it, it went really well.
Yeah, you had to move all that spoil out of there too, and build these berms and all that stuff too. Yep. The weather did come, right? You were in the process. What was the story there? What happened? There was that big derecho, right? All that rain that came through here.
We started on Monday. We came out, kind of got a game plan together. Everybody was on board. This is what we were going to do. They kind of put me in the lead of starting wherever I wanted to start. We had some discussion and we was like, well, we'll just start here and we'll just make it work. So with that, we thought, well, hopefully the weather's just going to blow over, but it didn't. So right after lunchtime on Monday, it started downpouring pretty good. The wind picked up, dust storm, rained a lot, but it held up. Everything seemed to hold up pretty good and everything worked out good.
Drainage and something like that, good thing somebody had the forethought to put that in. Yeah.
So we did that in the preparation when we did the field. So when we did the 3D design that we had for the field, obviously for the PAC-MAN maze itself, but then that also showed us where we're going to put this pipe, right? So that pipe was decided months ago where we're going to put that at. So we had a starting point and an ending point. With the 3D capabilities that we have, we're able to kind of pin where that pipe is. So with no stakes or anything out here, we were like, this is where the pipe starts and this is where it ends. We can come back to that and look and see where that is on the field itself. So that really helped out.
A lot of vertical walls in here, obviously. I imagine you got a lot of practice at that. Did you learn anything in that process?
Yeah, a lot of practice on that. Vertical walls, it's like everything in construction world, maybe tearing out concrete, tearing out blacktop. It sounds different than dirt, but you got to give it somewhere to go. So you got to relieve the pressure, you might say. So as you're starting to dig, you're going to maybe make a mark and describe, but then as you get going through it, you're going to kind of dig out the middle. So digging through the middle, we can just hog that dirt out, take it down in layers, get full buckets, take everything out. And then when it comes to the sides, we want to be real precise. We want it to stand up, look real nice. So it takes a little bit more time. So with that, you kind of learn, well, I can take this out without disturbing that. But then when it comes down to the sides and the corners, it takes a little bit of time.
Any sharp intakes of breath working on some of those, thinner sections of wall where you've got it dug out on the far side and you're coming through on the near side, digging that wall right up against the other one?
Yeah. You'd be pretty much early mornings and late nights here digging this thing for sure. So early in the morning, you're kind of focused, you're on your game a lot. Yeah. Sometimes it was dark. Sunlight's just coming up and you're kind of prepared for the day, but then by the end of the day, you're about ready to go home. So, right? So you're like, I can just take a little bit more scoops. I can go a little bit faster, and then he kind of comes down to it and you're like, wait, I gotta slow down. I just got to stick with the game, right? Slow and steady wins the race.
So was there any plan for correcting errors? I mean, I would imagine there was a time where you thought, well, what if I knock one of these things down?
Well, I got told at the beginning before I started digging that you get, it's one and done on this one. So
okay.
You get one shot.
Yeah.
Not that I'd be done at Caterpillar, but with the 3D capabilities in there and not having to pull any strings and anything else, as long as you took your time and didn't get in a big rush, it was all right there in front of you and you had no kind of second guessing or whatsoever for sure.
Yeah, I can't imagine how long this would take with strings and stakes.
No.
Yeah, that'd be...
Can't imagine. Like I said, the string and stakes plus the manpower to be out here to pull the string and stakes and then to mark it. And then we're going to disturb it. And then we're going to move it. Not only just the maze itself, but we have we have slopes on here. We have hinge points on here. With all the game board setting up top, those banners are precise, right? So with not just the maze itself, but just the top of it, having the right dimensions on everything and the slopes. So with all that being said, with some bubble levels and strings and tapes, we'd still be out there right now.
Yeah, and the people from the PAC-MAN company, they were sort of overlooking the whole thing. They wanted it to look just right. They'd send you back to the drawing board, I expect.
Could be, yeah. Luckily, it didn't happen that way, though.
Well, they tell me that I'm going to get a chance to operate some machines at the end of this thing when all the shooting is over. So one of the burning questions for me is, how am I going to knock down one of these walls with a skid steer loader?
Well, that's a good question.
You're not going to tell me.
You're probably going to have one that maybe has a bucket on it.
Yeah. Probably can't do it with the barrels on forks.
No, probably no barrels or trenchers.
No, you don't think the trencher would work? I could cut my way through.
Maybe jackhammer.
Well, Brian, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. This thing is going to be fantastic. We're looking forward to seeing the results.
No, thanks for coming out, and hopefully everybody enjoys everything. So yeah.